"Don't come to the wedding," my mom texted. "You and your kids just make things awkward." My sister reacted with a laughing emoji. I replied, "Then you won't need my card for the venue." The group chat exploded with laughter, completely unaware of what was about to happen next. You know that gut-wrenching feeling when your whole world just shatters? Mine did, 3 weeks before my sister's wedding, all because of a single text message. Can you even imagine being told your own family is too awkward for the biggest day of your sister's life? Hi, I'm Randy. I'm 34, a single mom to 2 incredible kids, and I thought I understood my family. Growing up in a middle-class suburban home in Westlake, Ohio, I always knew where I stood. My mom, Diane, was the ultimate perfectionist. Her entire life revolved around appearances, what the neighbors thought. Our house was spotless, our clothes pressed, our family photos straight out of a magazine. But behind that polished facade, a tangled web of favoritism and impossible standards. My sister, Natalie, 3 years younger, was the golden child. Blonde hair, petite, just like mom's ideal. She was effortlessly everything my mother valued. Cheer captain, homecoming queen, a business degree. I was the designated black sheep. Wild curly hair, sketch pads instead of pom-poms, always questioning authority. My creative dreams were hobbies, not real jobs. When I said I'd major in graphic design, Mom actually cried at the dinner table, mourning my lost potential while Natalie patted her hand sympathetically. The divide between us just kept growing. Then, at 24, I got pregnant with Tyler. My relationship with his father had ended months before. When I told my family, Mom's first words weren't, "Are you okay?" or "How can I help?" It was, "What will people think?" Natalie, fresh off her MBA, looked at me with this sickening mix of pity and superiority. "Oh, Randy," she cooed, "how are you going to manage a baby? You can barely manage yourself." Mom nodded in agreement. It burned. It just absolutely burned. Despite them, I finished my degree, gave birth to Tyler between final exams, and graduated 3 weeks later with my newborn in my arms. No family in the audience. Those early years were brutal. I worked freelance, nursing Tyler with one hand, surviving on fumes. Mom's visits felt like inspections, endless criticisms about everything. "You should have thought about all this before getting pregnant," she'd snap if I ever mentioned being tired. Her help always came with a price tag of judgment. For years later, I met David. Kind, creative. For 2 years, I thought we'd build a life. Emma was a beautiful surprise, initially bringing us closer. But by her second birthday, David's musician career meant long absences, eventually a move to LA, and promises that faded into missed child support payments. So, at 28, I was a single mom of 2, building a home business, working late after the kids were asleep, determined to make it work. Family gatherings became exercises in endurance. Mom would fawn over Natalie's career and dating life, then make pointed comments about my kids or my appearance. "Randy, you might want to try that new diet," she'd announce across the Thanksgiving table. Or, "Can't you get Tyler to sit still for 5 minutes?" Natalie was never so fidgety. The comparisons were endless and always against me. Natalie's trendy apartment versus my modest rental. Her designer clothes versus my practical mom wear. Her business trips versus my rare treats to the local amusement park with my kids. The worst part? Watching my children absorb it all. Tyler, so sensitive, would withdraw around his grandma and aunt. Emma, naturally bubbly, would try harder and harder for their approval, only to be corrected for being too loud or too messy. Still, I persisted. Family is family, I'd tell myself. The kids deserve to know their relatives, even if those relatives were deeply flawed. I brought them to Sunday dinners, bought thoughtful gifts, even hosted holidays, enduring Mom's improvements to my home and cooking. Then, 6 months ago, Natalie announced her engagement to James, the son of a powerful real estate mogul. Mom practically vibrated with excitement. "Just think," she practically shrieked, "our grandchildren will have the best of everything." I watched her eyes flick to Tyler and Emma, playing quietly, and knew instantly. In her mind, my children weren't part of that grandchildren equation. They were complications, extensions of her less-than-perfect daughter. As everyone toasted, I smiled, congratulated them, already sensing this wedding was about to become another battleground in our family's war of appearances versus reality. Surprisingly, I was initially included. Mom called, almost sounding pleasant. "Randy, we're having a preliminary wedding planning lunch on Saturday. Natalie would like you to be there. Eleanor Wilson will be joining us, so please wear something appropriate." That pause before appropriate spoke volumes, but I chose hope. Maybe, just maybe, this wedding would bring us closer. I arrived at the upscale restaurant 7 minutes late. Emma had been sick. I'd scrambled for a sitter. Mom's tight smile said those 7 minutes were filed away. Eleanor Wilson was everything I imagined, expensively dressed, perfectly coiffed, radiating old money. She assessed me in one swift glance, taking in my scuffed flats, my frizzy hair. "This is Diane's older daughter, Randy," Natalie introduced me with a dismissive wave. "She does some kind of computer art or something." "I'm a graphic designer," I corrected gently, extending my hand to Eleanor. "Lovely to meet you." "Congratulations." Every suggestion I offered was politely acknowledged, then immediately dismissed. "What about custom invitations?" I ventured. "I'd be happy to design something." "Oh, that's sweet," Eleanor replied, patting my hand, "but we've already been in contact with Harringtons. They've done all the society weddings for generations. Very exclusive." Mom beamed. Natalie nodded. I took a long sip of water, swallowing my offer along with my pride. My involvement dwindled. I'd get texts about decisions already made, framed as updates. The only area my participation seemed desired was financial. "We found the perfect venue," Mom announced during a rare phone call. "The Grand Pavilion at Lakeside Gardens. It's stunning, but with all the extras Natalie deserves, it's running a bit higher than our budget." The careful pause told me what was coming. "I don't suppose you could contribute anything? For your sister's special day?" Despite my tight finances, I offered $5,000 for the venue. It meant dipping into my emergency fund, postponing home repairs. But I wanted to show my support. Mom's relieved thanks, her promises of full involvement, seemed worth the sacrifice. Soon after, Tyler and Emma bounded into the kitchen, their faces alight. "Aunt Natalie called," Tyler announced. "She asked if I want to be a junior groomsman, and Emma gets to be a flower girl." My heart swelled. Maybe things were turning around. Maybe my contribution had secured their place, showing we were truly included. That weekend, the four of us went outfit shopping. Mom insisted on joining, claiming her expert eye was needed. It quickly devolved into a stress fest. She criticized everything. Emma's hair, "Couldn't you at least have braided it properly?" To Tyler's posture, "Stand up straight, for goodness sake, you look like a hooligan." When Emma accidentally knocked over a mannequin, Mom's face went rigid. "This is precisely why children need proper discipline," she hissed at me. "How are they going to behave at an elegant wedding if they can't even control themselves in a department store?" Before I could defend my kids, I overheard her on the phone, voice low but clear. "Yes, Natalie, it's exactly what we feared. The children are completely wild, and Randy just lets them run amok. Yes, it might complicate things having them in the wedding party." My stomach clenched. They were reevaluating my children as liabilities, not beloved family. Over the next weeks, I tried to connect with Natalie, but she always had an excuse. Then came the bridal shower. I knew nothing until I saw the photos on social media. Cousins, aunts, mom, even old neighbors, all raising champagne glasses. The caption, "Showering our beautiful bride with love #Natalie and James #perfect pair." I stared at those photos for hours, searching for any sign my absence had been noticed. None. They all looked perfectly happy, perfectly complete without me. I also heard through my Aunt Susan that James's parents had hosted a formal dinner to meet Natalie's family. All of Natalie's family except me and my kids. When I casually mentioned it to Mom, she brushed it off. It was very last minute, very small, just immediate family. Immediate family. The words hung in the air. In their minds, I was now extended family. Or no family at all. Rumors started reaching me. My mother telling relatives I was too busy. Uncle Robert asking if I'd opted out of wedding planning. Finally, after weeks of evasion, I directly asked Natalie, so, what exactly am I doing for the ceremony? And are Tyler and Emma still in the wedding party? I need to make sure their outfits are ready. Her response was vague. We're still figuring out details. The wedding party is getting kind of large, so we might need to make some adjustments. I'll let you know. I hung up with a sinking feeling. Those adjustments would involve erasing us. But still, I clung to hope. Surely, my own mother and sister wouldn't completely exclude us from such an important event, especially after my $5,000 contribution. I was wrong. The message arrived on a Thursday morning, exactly 3 weeks before the wedding. I was making breakfast, my phone charging. The family group chat started chiming repeatedly. Wedding arrangements. Mom posting photos of floral arrangements, table settings. Everything is coming together beautifully. Natalie chimed in, I can't believe it's only 3 weeks away. I was about to put my phone down. Then Mom's next text stopped me cold. Randy, we think it's best if you don't come to the wedding. You and your kids just make things awkward, and we want this day to be perfect for Natalie. I froze. Spatula in hand. Eggs burning on the stove. Before I could even process it, Natalie responded with a laughing emoji. Mom's right. No offense, but James's family is really classy. The phone nearly slipped from my numb fingers. I shut off the stove mechanically, my mind racing. This had to be a joke. But more messages appeared. Mom again. It's nothing personal, Randy. It's just that the Wilsons have certain expectations. Children who aren't properly behaved would be a distraction. Natalie. Plus, you always look so stressed and tired in photos. This wedding is going to be in all the local magazines. My mother. We still appreciate the venue contribution, of course. That was very generous. I felt like I'd been physically struck. The kitchen wobbled. Tears blurred my vision. Mom, the eggs are burning. Mom, are you okay? You're crying. Tyler stood beside me, his 10-year-old face creased with concern. Emma, behind him, blissfully unaware, arranging her stuffed animals. I quickly wiped my eyes, forced a smile. I'm fine, buddy. Just got something in my eye. Thanks for telling me about the eggs. Let's make some new ones. As I cracked fresh eggs with trembling hands, shock transformed into something else. A deep, burning anger rose up from somewhere primal. How dare they treat my children this way? How dare they act as if we were embarrassing accessories, not family? I picked up my phone, typed a response, tried to keep my tone controlled and dignified despite the rage. Then you won't need my card for the venue. It was simple, direct, and apparently hilarious to my family. Natalie immediately responded with another laughing emoji. Good one, sis, but seriously, the venue deposit is non-refundable, so thanks for that. Mom added, don't be dramatic, Randy. This is about what's best for your sister's special day. Then my father, silent until now, chimed in. Your mother's right, Randy. Sometimes it's better to step back. No need to make this about you. More messages flooded in. From Aunt Patty, Randy, dear, perhaps this is for the best. Remember Tom and Sally's anniversary party when Tyler knocked over the ice sculpture? Uncle Dave, some events just aren't kid-friendly. Nothing personal. Cousin Beth, I think what they're trying to say is more intimate ceremony equals more elegant. You understand, right? With each message, the knot in my stomach tightened. These people had known me my entire life. Not one of them was standing up for me. Not one. I set my phone face down as it continued to buzz. Time for breakfast, guys. I called, determined not to let them see how shaken I was. Tyler kept shooting concerned glances. Emma, with the simple wisdom of childhood, finally asked, Are you sad, Mommy? Your eyes look rainy. Just a grown-up problem, sweetie, I answered, stroking her hair. Nothing for you to worry about. But after I dropped them at school, I sat in my car in the parking lot and finally allowed myself to break down completely. Huge, racking sobs tore through me. It wasn't just about a wedding invitation. It was about years of being treated as lesser, of watching my children judged, of trying so hard to maintain connections with people who fundamentally did not respect me. When I got home, my phone showed 17 new messages. I silenced the conversation without reading them. Whatever barbs they'd thrown would wait. I had client work to do. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I finally read the messages. Most were variations on the same theme. I was overreacting, being selfish, needed to think of Natalie's happiness. The conversation had eventually moved to discussing which relatives would now be seated at the table originally reserved for me and my children. I curled up on the sofa, wrapped in the quilt my grandmother had made me, and cried until I had no tears left. My grandmother had been different. She celebrated my creativity, defended my choices, loved my children without reservation. Family is about acceptance, not perfection, she used to say. If she were alive, she would be appalled. As midnight approached, I made a cup of tea, sat at my kitchen table, began to process not just today's events, but the years of subtle and not-so-subtle mistreatment that had led to this. The wedding exclusion wasn't an anomaly. It was the most blatant expression of how my mother and sister truly saw us. The realization was painful, but strangely liberating. For years, I'd been chasing approval I'd never receive, making excuses, exposing my children to people who viewed them as inconveniences. No more, I whispered to my empty kitchen. This stops now. The next morning, after getting the kids to school, I called Zoe, my best friend. They did what? Zoe exploded after I recounted the text exchange. Oh my God, Randy, that's beyond cruel. That's psychological warfare. Hearing my own thoughts validated helped solidify the emotional shift I'd made. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. I don't know why I'm even surprised, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Remember Emma's 5th birthday when Mom showed up with a cake because mine wasn't presentable enough? Or when your sister scheduled her housewarming party the same day as Tyler's school play, then got mad you chose his performance? Zoe added. More memory surfaced, each a puzzle piece I'd finally fit into place. I think I've been gaslighting myself, I admitted. Making excuses, telling myself it wasn't that bad. That's what happens when you grow up with that kind of treatment, Zoe replied gently. You normalize it. But Randy, there is nothing normal about what they're doing. It's toxic, and you and your kids deserve so much better. After our call, I felt strangely calm, like the eye of an emotional hurricane. The initial shock had passed, replaced by a clear, cold anger. But I knew the real emotional processing was still to come. That clarity shattered when Tyler came home, red-eyed, with a defensive hunch to his shoulders I knew all too well. What happened, buddy? I asked. He was quiet. Jake said we're not going to Aunt Natalie's wedding anymore. Jake was Natalie's stepson-to-be. He said it's because we don't know how to act right, and his grandma doesn't want us there. My heart broke all over again. Tyler, did Jake say that at school? In front of other kids. Tyler nodded, a single tear escaping. He told everyone during lunch. Said his dad is paying for a super fancy wedding, and they don't want it ruined. I took a deep breath. Tyler, look at me. What Jake said isn't true. The reason we're not going has nothing to do with you or your behavior. It's about grown-up problems between me, Grandma, and Aunt Natalie. Is it because we're not rich like Jake's family? He asked, with the devastating directness of children. No, honey. It's because sometimes adults make bad choices that hurt other people's feelings. And when that happens, we need to set boundaries. What are boundaries? Boundaries are rules we set to protect ourselves from people who don't treat us with respect. I explained using his toy analogy. So, we're setting a boundary with Grandma and Aunt Natalie, he asked. Yes, we are. And that's okay. It doesn't mean we don't love them. It just means we expect to be treated with kindness and respect, just like everyone else. That evening, the calls began. Mom, Dad, aunts, uncles. All variations of, I needed to be reasonable, not make a scene, and still follow through with the venue contribution. I let most go to voicemail, but took my father's call. Randy, you know how your mother gets about these social events, he said, his voice the familiar mix of placating and dismissive. Just let this one go. We can have a separate family celebration. Dad, do you understand what happened here? Mom and Natalie publicly uninvited your grandchildren from a family wedding, humiliating them. Now their cousin is bullying them about it, and you want me to just let it go. You're blowing this out of proportion, he sighed. No one meant to hurt the kids. It's just that this wedding is very important for your sister's future. The Wilsons are influential people. More influential than your own grandchildren's emotional well-being. His silence was answer enough. After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table, a notepad in front of me. My designer's brain automatically organized the chaos. What we know: 1. My family excluded me and my children in the cruelest way. 2. They still expect my $5,000. 3. This is a toxic pattern. 4. My children are being actively harmed. What we don't know: 1. How much does James know? 2. What have Mom and Natalie told the Wilsons about us? 3. Is the venue payment already paid? Refundable? 4. Who else knows about our exclusion, and what have they been told? With these questions, I started investigating. First call: the Grand Pavilion at Lakeside Gardens. I identified myself as Natalie's sister, helping with wedding details. I just wanted to confirm some information about the Thompson-Wilson wedding on the 21st. Of course, the coordinator said. Yes, here it is. Thompson-Wilson wedding, grand ballroom rental. 200 expected guests. Great. I'm just double-checking the payment schedule. Has the final payment been made? The coordinator hesitated. I see the initial deposit was made 2 months ago, but the final payment is actually past due. We've sent several reminders. This was interesting. I was under the impression that payment had already been arranged. My contribution was meant to complete it. There is a note here about a partial payment from the sister of the bride, she confirmed, but we haven't received it. According to our contract, the final payment is due 14 days before the event, which is this coming Friday. Without it, we can't guarantee the reservation will be held. My contribution wasn't just an extra, it was a critical component of their budget. And they expected it, despite explicitly uninviting me. My next call was to Aunt Susan, Mom's younger sister, the most likely to give me straight answers. Aunt Susan, can I ask you something about Natalie's wedding? I need you to be honest. Of course, honey. I heard there was some drama about you not attending. Your mother said you were having some personal issues. That's not true. They explicitly uninvited me and the kids. But what I want to know is what they've told James's family about us. Have you met the Wilsons? Susan's long pause was telling. Yes, I met them at the engagement dinner. Eleanor Wilson is very concerned with appearances. During that dinner, your mother mentioned you only once. She said you were an artist living in another state. I live 20 minutes from her house. I know. And when James asked if you had children, your mother changed the subject very quickly. I got the distinct impression that she's pretending you have a very different life than you actually do. A cold realization washed over me. They're ashamed of us. They're literally hiding our existence to impress these people. I think your mother sees this as Natalie's big chance to marry into the kind of social circle she's always wanted access to, Susan said. Carefully. She doesn't want anything to complicate that narrative. And my children and I complicate the narrative. In her mind, yes. You know your mother, Randy. She's always been obsessed with appearances. After thanking my aunt, I made one more call to a lawyer friend specializing in contract law. I explained the venue payment. If you never signed anything, you have no legal obligation, he assured me. A verbal promise of a gift doesn't constitute a binding agreement. If your name isn't on the venue contract, you're in the clear legally. What if they put my name on the contract without my knowledge? That would be problematic for them, not you. They can't obligate you to a contract you never signed, but it might create complications with the venue if they're expecting your payment. By the end of the day, I had a much clearer picture. My mother and sister had been counting on my money while simultaneously deciding I wasn't worthy of attending. They'd erased me from their carefully constructed narrative to impress the Wilsons. And most disturbingly, they saw absolutely nothing wrong with any of this. As I tucked my children into bed that night, watching their innocent faces relaxed in sleep, a steely resolve formed in my heart. This wasn't just about a wedding invitation anymore. This was about teaching my children what it meant to have self-respect, to set healthy boundaries, and to recognize when relationships were damaging rather than nurturing. We deserve better, I whispered, kissing their foreheads. And I'm going to make sure we get it. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The path forward wasn't about revenge or drama, but about justice, self-respect, and breaking unhealthy patterns. I opened my laptop and organized my thoughts into a concrete plan. First, I consulted my lawyer friend Mike again. Based on everything you've told me, you have no legal obligation to provide this money, he confirmed. However, if they listed you as a partial payer on the contract without your signature, that could create complications for them with the venue. That's exactly what I suspect happened, I said. My mother has a habit of making commitments on other people's behalf. In that case, I'd recommend formally rescinding your offer in writing. Send an email to both your mother and sister, CC the venue, stating clearly that due to your exclusion from the event, you are withdrawing your previously offered contribution. Won't that make me look vindictive? Like I'm trying to sabotage the wedding? Mike shook his head. It's not vindictive to withdraw financial support for an event you've been explicitly told not to attend. It's actually the logical consequence of their decision. With Mike's guidance, I drafted a clear, firm email to Mom and Natalie, with the venue coordinator CC'd. Professional, factual, no emotional language. I explained that since my presence and that of my children was not welcome, I was formally rescinding my offer. I wished them well and requested they not contact me further about financial contributions to an event we were prohibited from attending. After sending it, I blocked both their numbers. Temporarily. I needed space to implement the rest of my plan. Next, I focused on creating a special alternative day for my kids on the wedding date. I wanted them to understand that while rejection hurts, we could choose joy. How would you guys feel about going to Adventure World on the 20th? I asked at dinner. They've opened that new water slide section. Their enthusiasm was immediate, genuine. Both kids had been begging to visit. Is that the same day as Aunt Natalie's wedding? Tyler asked perceptively. Yes, it is, I said. I thought we could have our own special day while they have theirs. But why aren't we going to the wedding anymore? Emma asked, her small forehead wrinkled. I took a deep breath. Sometimes, Emma, people make choices that aren't very kind. Grandma and Aunt Natalie have made some choices that hurt our feelings. When that happens, it's okay to choose not to spend time with those people for a while. Did we do something bad? Her trembling lower lip nearly broke me. No, sweetie. You didn't do anything wrong at all. This is about them, not us. And instead of feeling sad, we're going to have our own amazing day of fun. As they discussed rides, I reflected on how these conversations were teaching them crucial life lessons, self-worth, healthy relationships. That love shouldn't be conditional. That true family supports you as you are. Over the next few days, I ignored the mounting voicemails and messages from various family members. Most were pressuring me to reconsider, guilt-tripping, manipulating. My father appealed to family loyalty. My aunt said I was stubborn and selfish. Natalie texted, accusing me of trying to ruin the biggest day of her life. I let them all go unanswered, focusing on my work, my children, and the small community of genuine friends who rallied around us. Zoe organized a movie night. My neighbor Barbara brought cookies and offered extra babysitting. My clients sent thoughtful messages. It was during this enforced radio silence that I received an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. Randy, this is James. Natalie's fiancé. I hesitated. Hello, James. This is unexpected. I'm sure it is. Look, I'll get right to the point. There seems to be some confusion about the wedding guest list, and I'm trying to get clarity. Natalie told me you didn't want to attend, but then I heard from the venue that there's some issue with the payment you had offered. I'm honestly confused. The genuine bewilderment in his voice suggested he truly had no idea. I took a deep breath. James, I'm going to tell you something that might be difficult to hear. I never said I didn't want to attend your wedding. In fact, until last week, my children and I were under the impression that we were not only invited, but participating. Tyler was supposed to be a junior groomsman, and Emma was going to be a flower girl. What? But Natalie said. He paused. She told me you weren't comfortable with formal events and preferred not to come. She said your kids had some behavioral issues that made large gatherings difficult for them. The hurt must have been evident in my silence because he quickly continued, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have repeated that. I'm just trying to understand. The truth is, James, my mother and sister explicitly uninvited us via a group text. They said my children and I make things awkward. They still expected me to contribute $5,000 toward the venue despite uninviting us. That can't be right, he said, but the uncertainty in his voice was clear. I can forward you the entire text exchange if you'd like to see it for yourself. Would you? I'd really appreciate that. This doesn't sound like the Natalie I know, but, well, there have been some strange tensions around the wedding planning that I haven't fully understood. After our call, I forwarded the entire humiliating text thread, along with screenshots of the follow-up. Messages pressuring me to still pay. It wasn't about creating problems, but bringing truth to a situation shrouded in lies. James called back 30 minutes later, his voice noticeably shaken. I don't even know what to say. I had no idea this was happening. My parents have been asking about meeting you and your kids. And Natalie kept making excuses. I just assumed you were busy. Or maybe some minor family tension, not this. I'm sorry you're finding out this way, I said. For what it's worth, I think Natalie genuinely cares about you. She just also cares tremendously about impressions and status, a value she inherited directly from our mother. I need to talk to her about this. And my parents. They would be horrified if they knew family members were being excluded like this. That's not how we operate. After hanging up, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I hadn't set out to create drama, but the truth always surfaces. Whatever happened next was out of my hands. I had been honest, set appropriate boundaries, and was focusing on my children. For the next 5 days, silence. After days of constant pressure, it was disconcerting, but also peaceful. I finalized our adventure world plans. As the wedding day approached, I felt stronger and more centered. The initial shock and hurt had transformed into a quiet determination. This painful experience had forced me to confront the dysfunctional patterns of my family. You seem different, Tyler observed the night before our theme park visit. Not sad anymore. I am different, I agreed. Sometimes hard things help us grow stronger, like how plants need storms to make their roots dig deeper. I smiled at his insight. Exactly like that. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be an adventure. The morning of Natalie's wedding dawned bright and clear. I woke before my alarm, a mix of emotions swirling through me. Somewhere, my sister was preparing to become a wife. Mom was likely fussing, creating the perfect illusion for the Wilsons. And here I was, choosing a different path. I pushed those thoughts aside as I heard excited footsteps. Mom, is it time to go to Adventure World? Emma burst into my room, already in her swimsuit, inside out and backwards. Tyler followed, quieter, but his eyes gleamed. It's going to be 87 degrees and sunny. I laughed, helping Emma fix her swimsuit. Perfect for water slides. Let's have breakfast first, then we can head out. As we ate Mickey Mouse pancakes, I kept my phone deliberately off, tucked away. Today wasn't about what we were missing. It was about what we were choosing to create together. Adventure World lived up to its name. We spent the morning conquering daring rides. Tyler, new confidence, led the charge. Emma shrieked with delight. We took silly photos, indulged in overpriced food, played every midway game. During a rest, Tyler looked up. This is better than a boring wedding anyway, right, Mom? I considered my answer carefully. Different experiences are valuable in different ways, Tyler. Weddings can be beautiful celebrations. But today, this is exactly where we're meant to be, having fun together. Emma won a stuffed unicorn. Tyler conquered the tallest water slide, emerging with a triumphant grin. I took dozens of photos, capturing their joy. By late afternoon, exhaustion set in. Emma's steps dragged. Tyler admitted he was tired. We headed home, stopping for ice cream. It wasn't until we were home, kids settled with a movie, that I finally retrieved my phone and turned it on. Immediately, it buzzed with a cascade of notifications. 15 missed calls, 23 texts, 7 voicemails. The first voicemail, from Mom at 10:30 a.m., was surprisingly composed. Randy, I hope you'll reconsider your position about the venue payment. The wedding starts at 4 o'clock, and we need to resolve this. Call me back immediately. The second, at noon, had a distinct edge of panic. Randy, this is getting ridiculous. The venue manager is saying there's an issue with the final payment. Call me back right now. By the third, at 1:15, Mom's composure had completely crumbled. Randy, please, you have to help us. The venue manager is threatening to cancel everything if the final payment isn't made by 3 o'clock. I don't know what you said to them, but they're insisting the contract listed you as a partial payer, and they can't proceed without your payment or a signature removing you from the agreement. Please, Natalie is in tears. You can't ruin her wedding like this. The remaining messages grew increasingly desperate, culminating in a sobbing Natalie begging me to just sign the stupid paper or pay the money, because the venue manager was being completely unreasonable and the photographer and florist were. Already they're setting up. I sat at my kitchen table, absorbing this unexpected turn. I had sent that email to clarify my position, not to actively create problems. I'd assumed Mom would simply cover the gap or find another solution. After ensuring the kids were engrossed in their movie, I called the venue directly. The manager explained that Mom had indeed listed me as a responsible party for part of the payment, creating a legal complication when I explicitly withdrew my offer. We tried to be flexible, she explained, but when no payment was forthcoming and no amended agreement was signed, we had to follow our contract terms. We couldn't hold the space without full payment. Has the situation been resolved? I asked. Not to my knowledge. The last update I received was that they were attempting to secure an alternative venue for a scaled-down version of the reception. The ceremony was moved to the church that was originally just for the service. I thanked her, sitting in silence. I hadn't intended to disrupt the wedding itself, only to establish boundaries. Yet, Mom's presumption, putting my name on legal documents without my consent, had created exactly the chaos she claimed to be avoiding. At 7:30, after getting the children bathed and into pajamas, I finally returned my mother's calls. She answered immediately. It's a bit late to call now, isn't it? Her voice was brittle with exhaustion and barely contained fury. I've been busy all day with the kids. I just got your messages. What happened with the wedding? As if you don't know. Your little stunt nearly ruined everything. We had to move the reception to the church basement at the last minute. Half the floral arrangements couldn't be transferred. The cake had to be rushed across town. The photographer charged extra. Eleanor Wilson was horrified by the disorganization. I'm sorry things were complicated, I said carefully. But I don't understand why you put my name on a contract without my permission. That created this problem. Not my withdrawal of a gift I was never obligated to give in the first place. Gift. This was your sister's wedding. Family helps family. Family also doesn't exclude family from important life events via group text. The line went quiet. Is that what this was about? Revenge because your feelings were hurt. No, Mom. This was about respecting myself and my children enough to not financially support people who treat us as embarrassments. This was about showing my kids that it's not okay to let people use you while simultaneously pushing you aside. Oh, that's rich coming from you. Always so righteous about your choices. Do you have any idea the damage you've caused? James's parents left early. They said they'd never seen such a disorganized event. Before I could respond, I heard Natalie's voice. You vindictive bitch, my sister hissed when she got on the line. You couldn't stand that I was having something special, could you? You had to make it all about you and your issues. Natalie, I didn't create this situation. All I did was withdraw financial support from an event I was explicitly told not to attend. The consequences came from Mom putting my name on legal documents without my knowledge or consent. You could have just paid it anyway. Or signed their stupid form. You knew how important this day was to me. And you knew how hurtful it was to uninvite your niece and nephew from being in your wedding party. You knew how humiliating it was to exclude your own sister via group text. You made your choices, and I made mine. The conversation devolved further, Natalie alternating between tearful accusations and angry threats. I remained calm, repeatedly bringing the focus back to their actions and their consequences. After hanging up, I was surprised to receive a text from James. I want you to know that none of this was your fault. What happened today opened my eyes to some dynamics I hadn't fully recognized. Thank you for your honesty. I hope someday we can start fresh as family. The next day, social media was conspicuously quiet. No perfect wedding photos. Their silence spoke volumes about how far reality had diverged from their expectations. 3 days later, I received a surprising call from Eleanor Wilson. Randy, this is Eleanor Wilson, James's mother. I hope you don't mind me calling. Not at all, Mrs. Wilson. How can I help you? Please call me Eleanor. I wanted to reach out personally to invite you and your children to brunch this Sunday. James has told us so much about his new niece and nephew, and we're eager to meet you all. I was momentarily speechless. That's very kind of you. We'd be happy to come. Wonderful. And Randy, I want you to know that James has explained the circumstances surrounding the wedding. My husband and I were quite disturbed to learn how you and your children were treated. That's not the kind of family values we raised our son with. After we arranged the details, I sat in stunned silence. In attempting to erase me from their perfect family narrative, my mother and sister had instead revealed the true dysfunction that had been lurking all along. The brunch with the Wilsons was pivotal. Harold and Eleanor welcomed us with genuine warmth. They weren't the intimidating elitists Mom had portrayed. They were down-to-earth, engaging with my children. Tyler, James tells me you're quite the baseball player, Harold said, showing him signed memorabilia. Emma, would you like to see the dollhouse that was mine when I was a little girl? Eleanor asked. As the children explored, Eleanor joined me. I want to be direct with you, Randy. What your mother told us about you and what we've learned for ourselves are very different things. What exactly did she tell you? I asked, finally confirming my suspicions. That you lived out of state, that you had made lifestyle choices the family found difficult, that you struggled with stability. Her diplomatic phrasing couldn't hide the implication. And now I see a devoted mother raising two wonderful children. James speaks highly of your work. And most importantly, I see someone who had the strength to stand up for herself and her children in a difficult situation. It wasn't about revenge, I said, feeling it important she understood. It was about not allowing my children to internalize the message that they weren't good enough. I understand that better than you might think, Eleanor said, surprising me. My own mother was similar to yours. Appearances meant everything. I wasn't the daughter she wanted either. That conversation marked the beginning of an unexpected alliance. While my own mother maintained a chilly distance, the Wilsons began regularly including us. Emma and Tyler developed a genuine friendship with their new uncle, James, who turned out to have a talent for connecting with kids that surprised even Natalie. In the months that followed, I committed to therapy, finally unpacking the years of conditional love and subtle undermining. My therapist helped me understand that the wedding incident hadn't created the dysfunction, it had merely exposed decades-old patterns. Your mother has narcissistic tendencies, she explained. And your sister learned that emulating your mother's values was the path to approval. Neither is likely to fundamentally change without their own committed therapy. With this understanding, I established clearer boundaries. I declined critical Sunday dinners, limited phone calls, filtered information. The children flourished. Tyler's teacher commented on his increased confidence. Emma's anxiety about being good enough faded. My business grew as I redirected energy from family drama into my client base. When Thanksgiving approached, James called. We're hosting this year. Eleanor suggested we start some new traditions. We'd really love for you and the kids to join us. What about my mother and father? I asked carefully. They've been invited too, but with clear expectations about behavior. Eleanor had a rather direct conversation with your mother about how family members are to be treated in our home. The Thanksgiving gathering was tense at times, but ultimately healing. Mom was subdued. Dad seemed relieved by the structure Eleanor subtly imposed. Natalie, 6 months into marriage and faced with James's obvious affection for his niece and nephew, made awkward but genuine attempts to connect. Afterward, Natalie reached out. We met for coffee. I'm not good at this, she began. Admitting when I've been wrong isn't exactly a skill Mom taught either of us. No, it wasn't, I agreed. The wedding was a disaster, she said bluntly. Not because of the venue change, but because I let Mom convince me that appearances matter more than actual relationships. James was really upset with me afterward. He said he didn't recognize the person I became. That excluding you and the kids showed a side of me he found disturbing. We've been in couples counseling. That couldn't have been easy to hear. It wasn't, but he wasn't wrong. She twisted her napkin. I'm not asking for forgiveness right away. I know what we did was cruel. I just want to know if there's a way forward eventually. Tyler and Emma are the only niece and nephew I'll ever have, and I've been a terrible aunt. Healing takes time, I said carefully. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but it needs to be different than before. My priority is protecting my children from the kind of treatment we've all normalized for too long. Over the following months, Natalie made consistent, if awkward, efforts. She came to Tyler's school play. She remembered Emma's birthday with a thoughtfully selected art set. Small steps, but meaningful. My mother proved less capable of change. She maintained I had overreacted, deliberately caused problems. When I held firm to my boundaries, she adopted a martyr position. Eventually, I accepted that my relationship with my mother might never be what I hoped for. Instead of trying to earn her approval, I focused on breaking the cycle with my own children. They would grow up knowing their worth didn't depend on meeting impossible standards. The family you're born into isn't always the family that nurtures you, I explained to Tyler one evening. Sometimes we have to create our own chosen family of people who love us as we are. Like Aunt Zoe and Miss Barbara next door, he asked. Exactly. And now Uncle James and the Wilsons, too. And we're a family, Emma added, with the simple wisdom of childhood. The best family. As I hugged my children close, I reflected on the painful journey that had led us to this point of greater health and authenticity. That wedding text, which had felt like such a devastating rejection, had ultimately been the catalyst for profound change. By standing up for myself and my children, I had broken generations of toxic patterns and created space for genuine connections to flourish. Forgiveness, I was learning, didn't require reconciliation with those who remained committed to harmful behavior. It meant releasing the anger that tied me to the pain, while maintaining the boundaries that protected our well-being. Most importantly, it meant teaching my children through example that love shouldn't hurt, that family should be a source of support, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from relationships that diminish rather than enhance your life. Today, 2 years after that fateful wedding text, our lives have found a new equilibrium. My relationship with Natalie continues to slowly heal. James has become the kind of uncle my children deserve. The Wilsons have embraced us as genuine family members. My father makes occasional efforts to connect. And my mother remains at a carefully managed distance, allowed limited access under specific conditions. It isn't the family story I would have written for myself as a young girl, but it's authentic, honest, and ultimately healthier than the facade we maintained for so many years. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? What helped you find the strength to prioritize your well-being over unhealthy family expectations? Tell me what you think. I really want to know. Thanks for watching. Take care.